Philippe Hrgovic and Zhang would be considered titans in the heavyweight division. The two gentlemen are of size and stature, a lot like the monsters in the monster movie universe. Let's talk about these heavyweights who recently crossed paths. In a heavyweight showdown that had to be seen to actually take in what it really meant for the division, Zhang and Philippe Hrgovic fought in an IBF title eliminator on the undercard of Usyk versus Joshua 2 on Saturday, August 20th. The two combatants faced each other in a battle that saw each of them for the first time in their careers fighting against someone who could definitely be a threat, posing a threat to what they brought in the ring. And though Zhang has a draw on his record, this was the first time that he had to step up and face someone who could actually put him in peril as well. As the two men entered the ring with their records being 15-0 with 12 KOs for Hrgovic and 24-1 with 19 KOs for Zhang, we got a chance to see exactly what each man could do in a fight against an opponent who can challenge them and test them. Now, what I saw and came away from this bout thinking is there are two lessons to be learned here. One is both men bring something to the division that you can always bank on if even the slightest heavyweight has anything cooking under the lid. And that happens to be the two key ingredients of power and strength. Both men showed this early on, even with Zhang putting Hrgovic to the canvas in the very first round. Hrgovic seemed surprised. He was not expecting Zhang's strength and found himself in a situation where he was on the back foot. Typically, Hrgovic is the one who is in pursuit of opponents. He's often tracking guys down, heavy on the front foot, and usually in that seek and destroy type disposition. Zhang gave him something else to think about, being equally as strong and a little bit more formidable when he would decide to let his hands go and throw body shots. The body shots seemed to make the difference in this bout. And Hrgovic got wind of that and began to do a little bit more work himself. But he did a lot more moving around the ring than he had possibly trained for. Zhang's right hand was underused. However, his straight left found Hrgovic at times and put Hrgovic in a definite position of staying away. The technical proficiency that he exhibited reminded me a lot of George Foreman, the elder George Foreman, who came back in his second career as the older, heavier Big George. Zhang's body punches were very reminiscent of how George would hunt guys down and go after them. And he put Hrgovic in peril several times, even to the point where I began to wonder whether or not Hrgovic may finish the fight because he didn't have that look of confidence that he normally reflects, and he seemed weary. It could have been an emotional thing, and it probably played a little bit heavily on his conditioning. As I said, he wasn't expecting to have to move as much as he found himself moving in this bout. The two exchanged punches at times, and it was entertaining. The real complaint that I come away in this bout is that Zhang was not busy enough. He could have easily won this fight had he just been a little bit busier letting his hands go. I'm wondering whether or not something else was going on with him, and that is from another standpoint that we can talk about here when it comes down to the big men. The big guys are usually accustomed to getting rid of people. And guess what that means if you don't get rid of someone? Conditioning. It comes down to conditioning. And we're not talking about whether or not you trained, you lost weight, you feel the shape, and then we're talking about the output, what you are physically exerting during a match. A lot of people don't understand that when these men face off against someone who is an actual threat to them, a lot of time your stamina can get eaten away by anxiety. To be able to put your emotions in check and to stay calm, to stay in the flow of what's taking place, and to be on top of things mentally, it's something that fighters have to learn with experience. And when you're knocking people out all the time, or if you have opponents that you face that cannot extend you rounds, you never get to this point where you learn to settle down. Big George Foreman learned that when he came back in his second career. He added that a lot of times he would spar longer rounds, not take breaks in between rounds, and other subtle things with setting his clock for rounds as the rounds would be extended, so the activity, what you put out, can be amped up. These are the things that someone like Zhang, who lost this fight on a close decision, but a battle that I felt that he won, he may want to consider this in the future. His trainers may have to look at that. That's where he finds the disappointment. It really falls on his own shoulders. And if he can do this, shore this up, he can come back and be formidable for anyone. And that is a dangerous man because he's large, he presents himself as in charge, and he hunts his prey down. And let's not forget, he's a southpaw. Hrgovic, on the other hand, has to go back to the drawing board. He has to understand that just because he's a big man himself, that he's not gonna get rid of everyone. And he found out that he can find himself on the canvas. So he is going to have to learn how to box more, use the ring, tie people up. This is Stormy B-Man. These are my assessments of what we saw between Hrgovic and Zhang. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Shout out to the LDBC. Until the next time we speak, Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.